All right, it is Tuesday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, which means it's time for Private Club Radio and one of our awesome guests that will be joining us. Today it's going to be Brian Friedrichs of Capstone Hospitality. We're going to talk about change in the membership and sales process. Obviously, we've all had to go through a lot of changes this last year, so it's a completely pertinent topic. And Brian's going to give you 3 ways to sort of manage change at your club there. Before we do that, I want to talk about our awesome sponsors. In fact, I'm going to play just a little clip from Restream here, which is the main sponsor of our show this year. It's the platform that we use here to go live, and we're going live across all the multiple platforms. It's a fantastic tool, and this week they've actually got a special going on. So anyway, I'm going to play you a little bit about Restream, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so I'm a big fan of what Restream is doing. It's a new technology, and it gives you a way to interact with your members in different areas. Not everyone uses LinkedIn, not everyone uses Facebook, YouTube, whatever platform they prefer. That can change from member to member, and Restream gives you the opportunity to sort of bring everyone together. It removes the technological barriers. It allows for things like this live Q&A that we're doing here. This week, they've got something going on. It's pretty cool. They've got 35% off of their yearly plans, but you can get started for free with it just to try it out for yourself. You can do that over at privateclubradio.com/restream. Also, a big thanks to Concert Golf Partners and the team of Peter Nagula, who bring capital and strategy to clubs all over the country. Concert Golf Partners, check them out, concertgolfpartners.com. Also want to give a big thanks to the National Club Association, longtime supporter of this show. We had our friend Henry Wallmeyer, the president and CEO, on last week. I heard him talking about their big conference coming up in May. It's going to be the first live conference back in the club industry in May. It's going to be down in Ocean Reef in Key West. So check out all the details, nationalclub.org. That's my alarm going off, which means it's time to bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Brian Friedrichs of Capstone Hospitality. Brian, how you doing, sir?
Man. Good. That's tough to follow that up right there.
Perfect timing when the alarms go off.
yeah, exactly. What's going on? How you doing?
Yeah, things are great here. You're also in Florida. We got some awesome weather on this side of the coast in Tampa. How are things over there?
Yeah, it's been incredible. Last 2 days are like picture perfect. So that's been good. That's been good to break up the winter a little bit. So definitely feels like we're sliding in the spring. The players, our offices are in Neptune Beach, Florida, which is right by Ponte Vedra Beach. So the players was there. That was a great tournament.
Did you get over to see it this year? Did you see it?
No, I didn't go to it. Just watched it from the living room. But it was actually really cool seeing crowds there again. And you could tell it almost felt like the players were maybe a little more nervous because now they're starting to see bigger crowds and they're like, oh man, this is a little bit different, but obviously certain people thrive off that and they won.
Right. So, yeah. No, the course was in beautiful condition too, man. They have it perfect. We've been lucky here in Florida this winter, just looking at what's going on up north in these snowstorms and in Texas. And I had friends that were stuck in Texas in their RV. It was been a crazy winter, but we've had a pretty good here in Florida. Well, we're going to talk to you about change.
Yeah, sure.
I do want to remind people that are watching that we're going to allow live questions and answers. So if at any time as me and Brian are talking today, if you've got a question about it, please let us know. We'll try to work you into the show here. But change is hard, right? We've all gone through a lot of change this last year. Brian, I'd love to kind of find out from you, what are your top 3 hardest changes that clubs have to make? What are the 3 issues that you see clubs making?
Yeah, so, my changes are going to be specific to the membership department. And obviously, there's changes that can happen throughout the entire organization for the better. And when I mean change, it's always, I always mean advancing. And the one thing that I think I've learned is that if you want to advance, if you want to get different results within your organization, whether it be on sales or operations or whatever it may be, you have to change, you have to advance. And sometimes that's just very challenging to do. People get stuck in patterns. They get comfortable with people. They get comfortable with their processes. And sometimes that can lead to complacency. And if you don't change and you don't make the commitment to change, to get out of those patterns, well, most likely you're just going to see very similar results to the past, right?
Sure.
So kind of the top 3 most difficult changes that we have seen clubs make within the membership department are, first is changes to the membership structure or pricing. And I'll give a couple examples. We worked with a club, a very nice club, but they had 30 membership categories that they were actively selling when they brought us in. Literally, not 30 that they have sold in the past and that, there's people within these categories. I'm talking 30 memberships levels that they were actively selling. And so, when we just did our basic secret shopping prior to taking them on as a client, it was the most confusing sales pitch I've ever seen in my entire life, because it's like, well, if you do this, you can have this. If you do this, you can have this. So we came in pretty firm and just said, hey, we'd like to reduce these down to 3 categories. Just make it very simple. You're full, you're athletic, and you're social. And they wouldn't do it. They felt like they would miss out, on the seasonal type people that were coming down. They felt like they would miss out on all these different categories. When the realism of it is all they were doing was devaluing their full membership. That's all they were doing. And it really
confuses people, right, Brian? Like, you have too many options, and it's like walking into an ice cream store, you got 60 options, and you don't even know, you can't make a decision. You have to taste everything.
There's a reason why the most successful fast casual restaurants have very simple menus.
Right.
It's psychology. It's do not confuse people in the process. And, if you have too many membership categories, not only are you going to confuse people, but you're going to devalue your membership. Because, for instance, let's take me, right? I'm busy. I run a company. I love golf, but realistically, I don't play it much. So if I was to go into a club and want to join, number one, I could join a full golf, right? And most likely I would. But if I'm presented with an option where, hey, you can play 4 times a year and it's only between these times, I might be like, wow, that's perfect for me, and I'm going to do that. But if the sales process was good and your membership categories are structured appropriately, you would be able to sell me on a full golf. There's no question. So that's, one thing I've seen clubs have a very, very challenging thing doing. It's almost like they get paralysis by analysis, right? And they're scared to make changes because they feel like, oh, this might actually hurt us. We might not capture the audience we want. In reality, it's actually doing the opposite. Another one that comes to mind is we had a club that was in a very seasonal type demographic, and there's a couple big cities right around them within 40, 50 miles. And the place was good enough. I mean, the golf course was good enough to where people would actually drive to it. But their initiation fee was high, their dues were high. And so people couldn't justify, right, coming down for that full golf, right, experience, because, it takes them an hour and a half to get down there. But this club had pretty lofty goals. And it's kind of going counterintuitive what I just said about reducing membership categories. But we actually wanted to add one membership category, a regional style membership category. And we got so wrapped up in red tape as far as getting it approved that ultimately they just didn't make a decision on it. And the salesperson that was in there wanted it. The staff wanted it. Everyone saw it, but the board just really had a difficult time making that change to that structure because, again, they felt like this was going to hurt their club. Right. And until you make the decision to change and, be fluid with the process and be fluid with the market, that I think your club is always going to struggle to reach its full potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love your analogy there about the fast casual restaurants. I mean, if you look at like Chipotle, there's like 4 items on the menu. In-N-Out Burger, it's like two or 3 different options. I mean, they have that sub menu, but animal style. Yeah. But in general, it's a very, very simple menu. You can really confuse people if you have too many options. No doubt about it. And I love your thoughts there on the regional membership. So what was it like? Was it like it couldn't decide how far out to go, or the zip code, or the radius, or something like that?
Yeah, well, we had presented like a pretty clear structure, and it really was they just couldn't make a decision on whether or not they wanted to approve it. They felt like it was going to tick off their existing members that some people from outside are not paying full dues and they're coming in, but it was a very limited membership, right? It was limited 12 rounds per year. They couldn't play in member guests, so we set it up to where it was not devaluing the full golf membership, right? Anybody that's interested in the full golf membership, they would never do a program like this because they're going to want to play in member guests. They're going to want to play on weekends. They're going to want to do these things. To me, this was more along the lines of a feeder style program where, hey, we want to get exposure for this club. It's a fantastic club. It's run incredibly well. You have these massive, target markets 40 to 50 miles away. And I really felt like, if we could get people in to this lower level category, right, to see how great this product was, that eventually there was going to be some really good upgrade opportunities within that as well. That was my thought. I'm not saying I'm always right, but I do feel like they missed the mark there a little bit on capturing a different target audience. And that's really one of the main things we try to do whenever we come in, right, is we obviously want to capture that core demographic, but then we want to figure out, okay, how can we get some ancillary type revenue coming into the club through these, regional style markets or a national style program or whatever it is. So if you're taking, a multi-tiered approach to getting people in the door and getting revenue in the door for your club, you're going to have a lot more long-term sustainability with the club. No question.
Sure. How many categories do you think is sort of ideal for most clubs out there in terms of?
I think 3 to 5. Yeah. Typically, I really like super simple. If you can get it down to just 2, I think that's really good. Like a golf and a social. Sure. Is pretty strong. And then, maybe within that, you have a couple subcategories of like junior executive within the full, junior executive within the social. Right. But again, keeping it very simple, I think, is the best way to approach it. And then again, if your club is set up, like we have a club just north of Atlanta, really high-end club, has some cabins. So we were like, hey, how are you utilizing these cabins? We think we can pull people from the Atlanta market, the Charlotte market, the Florida market, because your club is good enough and because the golf experience is good enough. And we've been able to do that. So, nice. But don't get too many categories in there to where, like you said, you're just going to confuse people.
There's a happy medium. That's great advice. Exactly. So what's your advice then? If how do you help people in this process to change? So many clubs are stuck in their ways. Oh, it's going to take board approval. We're going to change the bylaws. This is never going to work. How do you convince them to do that, Brian?
Yeah, I think they have to trust us. Number one, that we're trying to make the change for the best interest of the club. That's huge, and that is the only thing we're doing whenever we come into clubs. But it's also kind of just pulling off the Band-Aid, and it's also recognizing that, hey, even if we do make this change, and for some reason it's not exactly what we wanted, we can always go back. We can always make changes. I think that a lot of times, and in particular, equity clubs, they think that they have to do things so by the book, and they have their processes of kicking it back to a committee, then board approval, and then, oh, we need to tweak this one word, so that's got to go back to the committee. And again, it takes so long that so many times you just end up missing the mark. You lose that momentum. And in sales and in membership growth, momentum is everything. That's what we always try to structure our programs, our compensation packages, everything to where we can get momentum and you can start feeding off that momentum. Yeah. And so I think it's just encouraging them to trust that we are going to be able to sell this. We are going to be able to have success. If they trust the experts, and whether that's, your general manager, your membership director, trust the people that you have hired to put in those positions to execute on the plans. I think that's just a good way to lead in general.
Sure. And do you present them with data, case studies of clubs that have done this?
Absolutely. We have, we obviously we've worked with a lot of clubs around the country. And we're working with a lot of clubs actively around the country, so we can provide data. We black out names, obviously, for confidentiality purposes. But yeah, we just say, hey, we've done something similar to this. But every club is unique, right? Every market is unique. So, I never really want to take a cookie cutter approach to, hey, we've done this program here. It's for sure going to work here. We don't know ultimately until we get in there and start digging into it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's not. I think it probably eases some fears of people. No one ever wants to be like a first.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah,
that's awesome. All right, what's number 2 on your list, Brian, in terms of change?
Yeah, I think, and I think you can probably dive into this a lot as well, Gabe, in what you guys do. Changes to the way they market membership. We've gone into so many different clubs where they're not really marketing membership at all, number one, and changing that. We've gone into clubs where they're very high-end clubs, so they think that advertising, whatever it may be, cheapens their product. Right. And that's just simply not the case, right? You can do it appropriately to convey the exclusivity of your club, right? And the way I always say is like, well, we're going to make everything an invitation. All of your ads are going to be an invitation. We're not going to do these cheap ads, and so they just have sometimes challenges around that. They have challenges around having a diverse lead generation approach to where it's, hey, well, we just operate off member referrals. Okay, that's great. Member referrals, obviously a great source of new members. However, you guys aren't hitting your goals currently. So we need to expand on that. What have you seen?
There's only so many times you can go to the well, right?
Exactly. It's so true. Got to get new blood in there.
Yeah.
So what are some things you've seen?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think always in the beginning, people kind of associate running a advertising campaign or doing some sort of marketing with discounting. And that's, as you know, not what good marketing does. Good marketing builds perceived value.
Exactly.
And I always say Rolex, you can't even go and walk into a store and buy a Rolex right now, but yet they do all sorts of advertising, right? That's part of it to show, why this is something that's prestigious or something that you want to aspire to, right? So it can be, and they're such a great case study in general. I love to use them because the way they've really moved up market all of a sudden and built in the scarcity into what they're doing.
That's interesting.
It's helped them. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But yeah, you're right on there. And how do you get people again? How do you get them over the cliff there in terms of taking those first steps? And what would be some of the first steps that you would take in terms of helping people get the message out more broadly?
Yeah. So first thing I would do is just a full audit on what they have done and what is working and what isn't working. Again, that is one of the biggest things that I see is, they're maybe applying a lot of their resources to things that aren't working. Like for instance, and this is not a knock on any magazine or anything, but for membership in particular and direct membership sales, we have seen through a ton of different data that they don't work. Magazine ads typically do not work. So who's that? Frank? Oh, what's up, Frank?
Yeah. So Frank, I'm sort of like in-law in ways. It's like the cousins. My wife is his wife's cousin. So
okay, cool, nice. That's cool. Blast from the past, right there. We went to high school back together.
That's cool.
So yeah, changing the way things are being done currently, right? And if they aren't working, making that change. But then it's right, we have massive amounts of data on what does work at country clubs. Right. For instance, we know right now direct mailers work really well. We know Facebook ads work really well if done appropriately. Google AdWords work really, really well. Obviously, member referral programs, realtor referral programs, and that just providing the data. And maybe next show, I'll actually pull up some of our data and show you guys. And also just show some of the reports that we're doing to where you can see all of these different things and, what's tracking the best, what isn't. And I think once we show clubs that data and provide a roadmap specific for their club, it gives them the confidence that, okay, we're going to take the marketing dollars that you're spending currently, whether it's $20,000 or $100,000, and we're going to maximize those with things that we actually know work. And then your individual markets are going to have some small little ancillary things that are custom that we're going to have to figure out once we get in there. But I think that's probably the best way to start is look at what's working, what isn't working, pour your resources into that.
Yeah, you brought it up. I mean, there's traditional media. You talk about billboards, magazines, things like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess that's good in terms of a branding play, but that's not going to drive any real specific results. And I think it's just all too often people are like, okay, well, it's easier to sign off on a budget that you had last year than to take the next step and to really do the work and analyze, like you're telling folks to do. Analyze those numbers, see what was your best, conversion rate, what was your best return on investment. I'd really love to see some of these club marketing departments start to really act like a business. I mean, that's what it's funny that he's doing that.
It's so funny. I met with a club down in South Florida this past week, and it's a fantastic club, and it does look like we're going to end up working with them. So super excited about that. But that was one of the topics we discussed. Is you have these 3 new board members who just got elected to the board, and they are making changes, right? They're coming in, they're very successful business owners. And that was the one thing I said. I was like, your mind would be blown about how many boards I've met with where Fortune 500 CEOs sit on it, very unbelievably good business people that would never, ever, ever run their business the way that they're running their club. And so I think that's so unique, where I'm just like, guys, you need to think about this more as a business. And I think if they did that, they would make changes, because they know in business, if you do not make changes, sometimes you remain stagnant and you never grow. So that's why you said that. That just triggered that for me. That conversation. So true.
Well, sometimes the change you got to make is personnel, and I think that's your next point here. It leads into it beautifully. I mean, so many clubs again stuck in their ways. That's the people that are making the decisions. So let's talk about that, Brian.
Yeah, this is the hardest one, hands down, because making a personal change or personnel change is just difficult, right? We're all people, we're all humans. There's that human side of it. You want people to be successful. Maybe you've known this person for a long time, but ultimately, if someone is not getting the results that you want and your club so desperately needs, and you've done checks and balances, you've looked at the process is good. They're set up for success. You've looked at the training that they've received appropriate training, and they're still not producing, then it's probably time to make a change with the person. And that's really challenging, but ultimately as leaders, you have a responsibility to your club and its staff and its members to make changes whenever things are not working. I've gotten into situations with potential prospects where the person that's sitting in the seat is just not hitting the numbers. Maybe that's not their strong suit. Maybe they're more of a member relations type person. And so they've just sat on it so hard. And then eventually when they did make a change, that person was actually a lot happier because they didn't really like sales. And when they were moved into a member relations role or a catering role, whatever it is, they thrived. So a lot of times if, someone is not clicking and not hitting their goals, a lot of times deep down, they probably want to change too. So, be the leaders and sometimes make those changes, where you see fit. And, one thing I want to encourage too is, there's a whole wealth of resources out there to take a look at your operations, to take a look at your sales processes, to take a look at your people. Utilize those things in the industry. Give me a call and take me through your process, and I'll provide a completely objective perspective on, it sounds like your process is great. It sounds like you guys are rolling, or, hey, you may want to make a change here or there. And sometimes that can help, I think, just having a different set of eyes to take a look at it occasionally.
I need it even in my own business. Like
me too.
I've had times, and I've got, people that work for me that are designers and things like this. And I needed something, and I just needed a new, fresh perspective. Yeah. Sometimes when you're just so focused on one thing, or you've done something for so long, you have to have a fresh set of eyes come in. It's so valuable. So I love that advice there.
Same thing goes for me in my business. Occasionally I will have advisors come in and take a look at the operations and say, hey, how can we get better? Because, I never want to be the person that's preaching, making changes and, changing up your processes to make it better. And then here I am stuck in my ways. Right. So I think it's a good process to have checks and balances in your business, no matter what level you're at. So that's great. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Change is just so difficult in general,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we all, again, had to face it, last year, especially we had to face things head on. I do think clubs did a great job of pivoting.
They did.
I'd continue to see that change, and this is the year, like if you didn't have a good year last year, if you didn't hit the numbers that you should have hit, I mean, if you didn't have a banner year in 2020 and you're not off to an amazing start in 2021 already, then that is the the dictionary definition of you need to change, because you can't make it happen right now when this is probably the best time ever for private clubs in terms of membership. There's no other competition. Like I went to a theme park the other day, and the place was pretty much empty. I mean, people just still are not really venturing out, and golf is the one thing they feel safe doing. If you can't make a dent right now, and if you're not already doing that, you got to get a hold of Brian and his team. What else do you have to say about that, Brian, in terms of
golf and boating, two of the biggest things. No, it's so true. Every single one of our properties had record years in 2020, and just like you said, in 2021 we're beating those numbers from 2020 already. The demand is there, and if you are not capturing it through an appropriate sales process, good management of your salespeople, a diverse lead generation approach, you're not taking advantage, and you're not doing what's right for your club by loading up on members right now, because literally that is what we are seeing all across the country, just like Gabe said. And even if maybe you did see a slight increase from 2019 to 2020, that's very common. Even if your approach didn't change at all, the demand increased, obviously.
You could have blindfolded yourself and got 20 members last year.
But it doesn't mean you're still taking full advantage of it, right? So dive into it, commit to making change, even if you are seeing success. Just like us, we're constantly trying to get better and advance our processes. And even though we're seeing record crazy numbers, we're always asking the question, how can we see a little bit more? Because that's what our clients deserve. That's what the members deserve at these clubs. And that's what the prospects deserve, who are, trying to make these decisions on where they want to be.
What would be your benchmarks, Brian, right now, sitting in the early first quarter here of 2021, in terms of like, how many leads do you think would be a healthy number? Like if managers are out there or boards are out there and they're trying to figure out, hey, are we doing as much as we can be doing?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the benchmarks or some of the things that you'd have, areas that they should be looking on specifically?
Yeah, what's funny is literally in the room right behind me, I can hear it. There's a meeting going on discussing that right now with our team. But yeah, I mean, we're tracking growth numbers, right? So we're seeing 25% year over year growth basically at every single club from last year, from a banner year. So I would track those numbers. What year over year numbers are you doing? And make sure you're looking at those. But as far as leads go, again, I know this is not the best response to it, but it's going to vary from club to club and market to market.
Well, even from a percentage standpoint, if 25% year over year growth is sort of the number, what would you expect would be the growth number in leads, for instance?
Yeah, I would think probably match pretty similar, 25, 50% on just leads coming in organically, right? And then if you can expand on that, you can put into place more lead generators, that's going to help immensely as well. So if you're tracking your leads, and one good way to track is just if you use like Club Essential or Jonas or whoever it is that manages your website, have them pull a report for you based off of 2020, 2019, 2021, and just track Q1, right? And track the leads that are coming on your online inquiries. And then get with your salesperson and say, hey, take me through all your lead generator programs, take me through what they're actually bringing in. And it might open your eyes, just the fact that like maybe not a lot of tracking is being done. And if there isn't, make sure they track it. But yeah, I would say they probably should match similar numbers, 25, 50% higher than leads that you've seen in the past. But I'll tell you what I do next show. I will get all of our data together and I'll share it with you guys.
Nice.
So that I can give you very firm, clear numbers.
Right, but that gives people something to look at, and again, like you said, Brian, if your people aren't letting you know how many leads are coming in, what's the conversion rate, what's the return on investment, ROI. I mean, every single business in the planet operates on ROI, and almost no clubs do, right?
Right.
I'll give you a quick thing that had me scratching my head the other day. We were working with a club. I again won't name names, and we've done an incredible job. In fact, they had $250,000 or something in memberships last year. Some, and they don't have a very high initiation fee. So we drove hundreds of leads every single month.
Nice.
We raised our prices because Facebook raised its ad prices. So we were forced to raise our prices like 15-20% because there's more competition, right?
Yep.
When competition goes up, you got to spend more money. But still, what they were paying compared to what we were proposing, the ROI was like outrageous. I think we did some numbers for them. I don't have the exact number on the top of my head, but it was something like 70,000, percent or something obscene, right? Really obscene of what they paid to what they brought in. And sometimes clubs are so, I call it like your penny smart and dollar.
Oh yeah,
fool,
there you go.
right?
Yeah.
You've got to see the forest for the trees. If you've got something that's working, you freaking hit that as hard as you can, and you don't stop. That's why it's so important to have someone like you guys come in and really, again, come in from a third-party perspective, analyze things, and help you, clear out and really focus on the metrics that are important. So if folks want to do that, Brian, if folks want to get a hold of you and your team, kind of get an analysis, get some of those benchmarks for themselves and find out where they're at, how do they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so easiest way is call me on my cell. That's area code 561-445-7448. Again, 561-445-7448. Or you can visit us on our website, which is capstone-hospitality.com. Again, capstone-hospitality.com. Or just Google us, Capstone Hospitality, will pop right up. But yeah, give us a call. Again, it's no cost, it's no risk to you to just have a third set of eyes, take a look at your sales process, your structuring, and I'll tell you, I'll be completely honest with you. Yeah, you're nailing it. You don't need any change, or you can maybe improve on certain areas. So it'd be fun. Give me a call. I would love to talk.
Do it, man. And before I get off of my soapbox, because you see my blood pressure is up a little bit. If you aren't hitting, if you're not hitting record numbers, give Brian a call. That's how I'm going to leave it. I appreciate everyone who's tuned in this Tuesday on spring break week. I appreciate it. If you've got any other questions for Brian, he's very available. Get a hold of him. Brian, what was your email one more time?
So it's just Brian at capstone-hospitality.com. It's Brian with an I. Brian at capstone-hospitality.com.
I'll put that in the show notes as well. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for all those that joined us live, as well as who are listening to the replay. We appreciate you, and I wish you all the success. I want to hear your success stories, so make sure you email me as well.
Awesome.
I'll see you guys. Awesome. I'll see you guys next week. Bye,
Thanks,
Brian.
Gabe.
Thanks so much for your time.
Talk to you later. Bye.